I've been making games wrong my whole life. By not having a plan. By not having a plan, you really set yourself up for failure, and that's what I've done all along because it's always just kind of been a fun like hobby to me, just kind of tinkering around. So Sling Smash, the ball game is I've just been dragging it along. It's like a project like you look at like an old project or something you made and you're just like you know but I'm still working on it. Like, there are so many mistakes along the way. The biggest one was just not having a plan. The scope changed, the platform changed. It really should have never taken that long, but I really didn't want to abandon another project, so I kept dragging it along, but I can feel it having a very negative effect on my creativity. Um, and the thought of just starting another project feels um, pointless because it's like you're not really learning, you know? And this whole process is about learning and getting better. Um, so I'm not going to do a full Steam release of the game because, to be honest, there's just not that much content there. There's maybe like 30 minutes of gameplay, if that, like depending on if you think it's fun or not. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to make it like a cohesive idea, a cohesive concept where you can play. It'll be just a short little experience. There will be one boss, and I'll just put it on itch and call it a day because I'm ready to move on. My process has changed. I mean, I started that project 2 years ago, was going to make it for mobile, changed my mind, made it PC, changed the scope, made it bigger, smaller, and a lot of that time was also spent not working on the game. Like, there was 10 months for a while where I did nothing. I did not work on any of my games. And along the way, I also started another project, the space game. Just jumped right into it, like no plan, really didn't scope it out. Um, and so then, put that on hold, went back to Sling Smash, and here we are. I'm like, I don't really want to keep working on it. I'm ready to move on. I have changed a lot as a person and a developer along the way, and my process has changed, and working on the project has become kind of painful because it's a reminder, not necessarily of like failure in a way. I don't know. It's hard to explain, I guess. I moved recently, and it's just like I'm ready for like new energy, basically. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's true. And if I can even just wrap that game up and put it on itch as like a small prototype, I think I'll be happy because even that is kind of breaking the cycle of what I usually do, which is abandon projects and move on. One of the other mistakes was, along with not having a plan or really planning out the game much and having like a concise scope, is I would just jump right into making devlogs and YouTube videos as well. And that's honestly part of the biggest reason why I have continued to work on it. Is like, if it was just me and I never told anyone about any of it, it would be easy to just like not finish it and move on. But because I have made like some devlogs and stuff, and I just feel obligated to finish it in a way. And it's funny because the space game devlogs, I made like two of them, were two of the best like long form YouTube videos. They performed the best. Mostly, I just think because of the concept, and I was able to kind of make like cooler thumbnails, I guess, more appealing thumbnails. And still, I ended up like not really abandoning it, but kind of, to come back to a different game that I abandoned. And it's all a part of the process and the journey, going from like kind of tinkering a hobbyist to, I want to get more serious. And I've realized over the past like year, that my process is not working and that I have to really take a different approach to making games. And I mean, it's obvious looking back now, like, yeah, you should plan it out a little better. Um, But that was just how I made games for the longest time. I just have part of an idea and just start making it and figure it out as I go. But that really doesn't work for me. I don't think it ever worked because I've not, I've been tinkering with making games since I was 12 or 13. I am now 26. And I have like hardly any actual release projects that I'm like super proud of. They're all like tiny little, like me just messing around. And honestly, some of the coolest stuff that I think I've made has not been released because it was never scoped out. It was never planned out very well. I just made like a prototype basically, and that was that. And unfortunately, with some of them, I would do the whole devlog thing, and it's like, well, if you abandon it now, it kind of looks, you're that guy. You're just never gonna finish anything, and that just feels like shit because I want to put games out there. I want my ideas to be out there. I want people to play the games. So yeah, gonna finish it. It's gonna be a much smaller version of kind of where it's at now. I'm okay with that. I'll put it out on itch and move on. Recently I have been finding drawing and writing concepts and ideas on paper, like not even like turn the computer off and just sketch stuff out has been super helpful for me to like just kind of figure out what I really want to do, what I really want to make, and putting more emphasis on having a whole idea, a concise whole idea, and actually planning out how, not only like what the idea is and its scope, but how I'm going to go about making it all on paper. I think that's going to give me a really good sort of roadmap, a plan when I go to actually start making the game. I have something more that I can follow, and when I start to like deviate from that original plan, I can look and see like, hey, you're doing it again. You're the scope creep or whatever. So get it all like inked on paper, figure it out. Obviously, small idea. I think another mistake I made was having too large of a scope without realizing it. Like I'm like, oh, it's really a small game, but when you start to break it down, it's not. Asking myself every step of the way, like, is this a small scoped game? Is this doable? Is this going to fit within a 4 to 6 month timeline, right? That was the other mistake as well with Sling Smash, and me deciding like last minute I'm going to do a Steam release. I'm going to enter Next Fest and do all like, if I entered Next Fest right now, like there's like what, maybe 2 weeks until registration closes. And then Next Fest is on October something. That gives me like no time to gain wish lists, and you start having those delusions of like, well, people will just buy the game anyway. And it's like, no, they won't. Why would they? Like, nobody knows about the game. There's not that much game there. And, I realized that. And I was like, this is kind of silly for me to like crunch through this and put this Steam page up and try to like, what's the point of this? I should just put it out on itch and move on because I just want to move on, and I feel like it's holding me back in the sense that I'm not growing and evolving my process the longer I continue to like drag these projects on. Because what ends up happening is I end up not working on the project, and I end up not starting another project because I don't want to abandon it. So I end up in this weird middle ground where it's like, I've not abandoned it. Like, that's the way I fix that, is by not abandoning it, I can't start another project because then I've abandoned it. So you end up in this state of, non-action. You're not doing anything. So it's time for that to change. Got to move on. And accept that, like, yeah, I've made mistakes with my process, and that's just all a part of the journey, and that's okay. Learning to be okay with that feeling of, like, because it's easy to compare yourself to other people. Everyone goes at their own pace, and everyone has their own disposition and starting point, and yeah, there's nothing you can do except just keep evolving and realize your shortcomings and just keep iterating and changing your process until it works. And for me, that's going to be getting this monkey off my back, putting this project out as like a little thing you can go and play, and then moving on and sort of having a different process about making games, and sticking to it. Because I do have another idea for a really small scoped game, and it's sort of more along the lines of like concepts I want to integrate into the game. Like Sling Smash is just kind of, I was like, I just want to make like an arcadey kind of game that's just fun to play. There's not like any deep lore, there's not like any significance. The space game was more along the lines of like a game I really, really wanted to make, but also just didn't really know what the game was. That was also just like a mechanic that I thought was cool, that I could make cool art around. And but this idea that I have now, that it kind of incorporates like more of the process that I enjoy. It's just sort of an idea that I feel like is a good cross between a lot of different concepts I've been thinking about for a while, but making sure that I make it small. So the plan with that is, obviously I've been drawing, basically making the game on paper. What I'm going to do is spend probably around 2 weeks, hopefully no more than 2 weeks, to make a super basic prototype. Bare bones, gameplay, no art, playable game loop. To spend another maybe week or so getting some basic art in there. And then I will probably do, like, I'll probably let people in the Discord test play it. I'm going to create the Steam page so people can actually start to, like, wish list it, because that's part of the other thing I screwed up. You know, like, you kind of have to do that soon so that this next Fest in February, I can maybe actually have some wish lists for the game, and then, you know, maybe people will actually know about it, so it's not just like me putting a game out into the ether where, you know, nobody's gonna really play it because I didn't really market it. If you guys watch these videos, and especially if you're watching to the end, thank you. It is helpful to, it's hard for me to do these types of videos because it's, I don't know, sometimes I have a hard time kind of explaining the shit that I'm thinking, the stuff that's going on up here. It's hard sometimes to like kind of like figure out what I'm trying to say, and yeah, it's kind of a release. I'm like, I can kind of move on. I feel like I have to kind of explain stuff, and then I'm like, I can move on, you know? So yeah, that's about it. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.